Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates and some exciting Star Wars Battlefront 2 news, because the reveal of Geonosis is finally here through both a community transmission that details the planet and how the game mode plays out, as well as an interview with Peter Vesti, one of the level designers who worked on this map. So I will be jumping a little bit in between them on points where the articles kind of intertwine and build upon each other, and similarly. As always, you can find a link to both articles in the description below, and here I want to focus on the kind of facts, you know, the faces, the vehicles, the details they give us around the map, what they thought about it, and some future hints for the large-scale game mode and similarly, as well as Obi-Wan. So if you want to know more about the kind of fine details that do not affect the gameplay directly and is more of like fun to know basis, I'd recommend you to read it through yourself, but you will get all the important bits here. So, well, let's dive straight into it. One of the first things they bring up that I think is quite interesting is that many of the current Galactic Assault maps are made so that the last phase will funnel everyone into one or potentially two places and therefore be incredibly hectic. Well, most of the maps are like that right now, but here they wanted it to be a bit different, where the first part is the infantry heavy part, whereas the second and third phase will be open, all-out vehicular combat and not be as condensed as it is on most of the other maps. So that's a very big difference here, where, for instance, I'm guessing heroes might actually be most viable on the first phase here. Now, one of the most important parts here is the AT-TEs. These are completely controllable. You can go in any direction you want, and they are not on rails like the AT-AT, and there will also be multiple of them at the same time. They have not confirmed a specific number, but based on this image that they released, which is kind of like a behind the scene image, we can actually see 7 of them. It's not entirely clear how much of this that is a playable area, but it could potentially be up to 7 AT-TEs at the same time, which is really interesting. And yes, they will unfortunately only be one-player vehicles. There's both good and bad to that. Ben did say that it's a one-person vehicle, would have liked to get a multi-vehicle done, and it was something we investigated but wasn't possible this time around. The bad part to it is obviously that, well, we don't get to steer the top cannon as a secondary gunner like in the original games. However, the positive side is that more people will actually be on the ground to fight. So if we, for instance, have 7 AT-TEs, that means we will have 13 people on the ground. But if it's 2 slots in each AT-TE, that means that there will be 14 people in the AT-TEs and therefore only 6 people on the ground. So it will be incredibly empty. So there's good and bad to it, but I would still prefer the 2-seated vehicles, but it's not a massive deal in my opinion. And another thing worth mentioning here is the fact that the AT-TEs will not be something that you spawn from the spawn screen on. They will actually be dropped down across the map by the LAAT carriers. So they will be dropped down dynamically on different positions on the map, and you will simply walk up to them and enter them, like the original games and like Battlefield has done it. So I think that's really cool, and you won't just be magically appearing in one from the spawn screen, which is a big difference compared to all other vehicles currently available in the game. But if we jump into the 3 phases, you'll get a better idea of how the game mode is actually going to play out, or how Galactic Assault is going to play out, to be more specific. So the first phase is the one that's focused on infantry combat. Because the clones needs to call in reinforcements and reactivate a damaged AT-TE. And Peter confirmed in the interview that there will be 2 objectives you need to capture in this phase in order to reactivate the AT-TE, and the droids simply have to stop them. And this phase will take place in typical Geonosian canyons with plenty of pathways and cover available. And in the second phase, that's when the big vehicular combat starts. You need to take out 2 hard cell troop transport ships as the clones by using AT-TEs. Gameplay wise, this objective is a bit of a mixture of the destroy objectives that we, for instance, can see on Crate and walkers, because the hard shell troop transports are static objects that the clones need to destroy before they run out of tickets. However, they need to be weakened before serious damage can be dealt to them. Similarly to walkers, this can be achieved by using the special ability of the AT-TE. This ties into the overarching theme of Geonosis, of the AT-TEs being the cornerstone of the battle. So that is quite cool, that it's not going to be an ion disruptor from the ground, but it's going to be the actual AT-TEs that will disable the hard cell troop transports. And then lastly, in the third phase, we have secure the turbo lasers. The goal is to recapture some abandoned turbo lasers to take down the droid core ship, the massive round ship you can see in the background of this screenshot. During this phase, the droids must do everything they can to defend the turbo lasers or loss will be imminent. Gameplay wise, this is a capture point, but with a twist, because this capture point is 200 meters wide, and obviously you might be thinking, oh, that's going to be an infinite loop of contested objective. But no, you can't contest this objective, and you can only capture it with AT-TEs. So the only way to prevent it is to destroy the AT-TEs before they get to the capture point or before they're done capturing the command point. But again, the interesting part is that you need to get those AT-TEs on the point. You can't just run in there with Vanguard, hide behind a crate and hope that you will be able to capture it. So a quite interesting thing that will be available. And something that's also new here is that the AT-TE will actually be the reinforcement. For the first phase, it will be like normal. If you kill a trooper, that team will lose one reinforcement. But for the second and third phase, the reinforcements are actually the AT-TEs. So if you die as a clone trooper, that doesn't affect the total reinforcement count, which means that technically it could go on forever if you don't shoot the AT-TEs, but people will hopefully do so. They don't give us a number here on how many tickets that the clones will have in the second and third phase, but I think it's a really cool mechanic, which again really shows how important the AT-TEs are here. And that if you want to run in there and die and do your part and maybe sacrifice yourself for the team, that's a good thing. It won't affect your reinforcement count, but if you take an AT-TE, turn it around and get killed, that's not very good for your team. And to give the droids a chance to help, they're actually getting missile launchers. That will be slightly different from the ion disruptors that are available in other Walker versions of Galactic Assault. The range of these are much longer than normal and the lock-on time very short. In addition to this, the droids won't be marked while holding the launcher, which I am very glad for. However, they won't make the AT-TE weaken, instead they just deal damage. I hope that normal troopers will also be able to deal damage, but just less. So if you decide to go on heavy with the ion turret, with the ion torpedo, with the explosive sentry, you can still do some decent damage, but that the missile launchers might be the most effective way. And something really cool that happens between the second and third phase is that a massive sandstorm will occur, therefore creating the normally very large and long-range map into a more close quarters map, as you will have a very limited visibility. And I think that's something a lot of us have requested, which is really cool. Like imagine all of a sudden going from, oh, I can see that sniper 200 meters away to, oh, I can use my Vanguard now, although we're in the middle of an open field. And I can just imagine seeing all the blue and red blaster bolts flying in that sandstorm. Hopefully it will look a bit like in the movie, if not better, actually. And there is actually one extra vehicle that we didn't know about that will be added, but that's not playable. The OG9 homing spider droid. This one will be in the background and actually attacking the AT-TEs and the troopers, similarly to how the MT-TEs and AT-ATs do currently if no one is inside them. So you can't just blindly walk forward with the AT-TEs, but you gotta destroy these spider droids. However, again, they will not be playable, so they will be AI controlled, but they still gotta be taken care of, as they're not just background vehicles that will affect the gameplay and how fast you can progress with the AT-TEs. I've also got some interesting comments here from Peter, the level designer, who I thought was worth bringing up. For instance, he says the following: the experience of playing Geonosis shouldn't be about a single player winning the objective for the entire team. It should rather feel like you're being part of a largest battle yet, and you're in it together with your team members on the front lines. That's been the #1 focus for us. Which does make a lot of sense, because you know, on some maps you can literally be the one person running up and capturing or deactivating an objective, and that's not the case here. Everyone has to do their part. Sure, there might be one person who controls that final AT-TE that will capture the point, but you won't be able to do it alone because you will be completely open. You need your teammates to protect you, to shoot down the people with the missile launchers, and so on. So I think that's going to be very different here compared to many of the other maps. And in terms of the new speeders, the STAP and the Bark speeder, he said that they're similar to the speeders already in the game, but with some adjustments made to their aiming to make them more viable on a big open level. So I hope that means that the controls will be better overall, because the controls for the speeder bikes at the moment are not very good. But hopefully there won't be as much trees and rocks and everything here as on Endor, so it could just overall work better, I think. And then he actually says some interesting things about the large-scale game mode coming in early next year. because he says from the beginning we actually had our new game mode featuring capture points and capital ship takedowns in mind. Typically we design our locations for Galactic Assault and add the smaller game modes where they sort of fit, but for this one we designed the level to be totally open and closed it off for Galactic Assault just to keep the gameplay streamlined. We saw a few cases in playtest where people got confused and thought they could go to areas that we will open up for the new mode. So this is quite interesting. I mean, we don't know how big the map is gonna be, but they've already said it is the biggest map they've made. And if we think it's gonna be big now in Galactic Assault, imagine how it's gonna be in the large scale game mode where they're gonna open it up even further. So I thought that was an interesting point they brought up, and whenever you play Geonosis later this month, keep in mind that this is not the full map. It will be even bigger for the large scale game mode. I'm almost thinking that at that point maybe we need more than 40 players to fill out the map, but that's a question for later. And in regards to the map potentially having too many specialists, he said the following: with vehicles at the heart of the gameplay and objectives on this map, you won't really help your team much by sitting behind a rock to snipe from 200 meters away. Indirectly, sure, as you're earning battle points and can spawn in as vehicles, enforcers or heroes, but not directly. We're providing a lots of cover across the map as well to give you a fair chance of not getting sniped. And on top of that you of course get the sandstorm later, which is probably gonna make sniping almost impossible. So I mean there's still gonna be people sniping obviously, same as on Crate right now, but hopefully people will play the objective, and hopefully it will also feel rewarding in terms of points doing so, which means that you don't want to snipe. However, if you are a clone, I think it's a viable tactic to snipe, but because someone has to kill the droids picking up the missile launchers, and I think a sniper could be an effective way to do that. But if you are on the droid side, it might not be the best tactic. And lastly, we've got our first glimpse of Obi-Wan in the game. A work in progress GIF showing Obi-Wan Kenobi's idle animation when he's basically just standing still. And yes, I know it's a green lightsaber. They clarified that multiple times that he will have a blue lightsaber when it's actually arrived into the game. And I think it's really cool that they're allowed to show this kind of work in progress images now. And something we can also see here is that he has 750 health. Doesn't necessarily have to be confirmed because of that, but I do think that's a reasonable number because it's slightly less than Grievous and some of the higher end heroes, but it's a bit more than some of the weakest heroes. And I think 750 was somewhere around where I would have guessed he would have. And there's also a work in progress image showing off Obi-Wan Kenobi's Jedi robes. And lastly, some quick news from Ben, who confirms that the Obi-Wan community transmission will be roughly a week before the release. So roughly 2 weeks from this point is when Obi-Wan's community transmission will arrive, and they did confirm that the vehicle one will arrive earlier than that. So I'm assuming the vehicle community transmission might be next week. So one community transmission per week is the most likely scenario. But that brings this video to an end. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.